Okay, so this is the tutorial. Since this is our first time with Articles of the Week, I want to model with you what exactly you should be doing for the finding text evidence activity. These are your directions. You should have the directions. You should have your copy of the article on the desk in front of you, a highlighter, and a pencil, along, of course, with this video. If you don't have those tools in front of you, make sure you get those together, pause the video, and come back and join me when you're ready. All right, so finding text evidence is a very important skill for sixth graders in both fiction and nonfiction, so we'll be practicing this a little bit every week. The directions for this activity are: number one, find each piece of evidence in the article and highlight it. And then number two, then write the number of the question beside it in the margin. So these are the numbers of the questions. There are going to be 8 questions, and we're going to, with a pencil, write the number of the question right next to that evidence that you highlighted. For questions 1 through 4, you will be citing textual evidence to support what the text says explicitly. And that word explicitly means it's right there in the text, almost word for word. You can find it, you can put your finger on it and find exactly where it is, okay? We're going to practice those first. They're a little bit easier than the ones that are based on inferences, which we'll get to in a minute. So number 1, find the sentence that explains how Elon Musk became a billionaire. So if you go back to the article as a review, remember it's organized. There's an introduction. There is a little biography on who Elon Musk is. Mission Possible is about the SpaceX program, what it's done so far. And then Mission for the Future is what Elon Musk has in store for the future of SpaceX. So if we're trying to find out how he became a billionaire, we're probably going to want to focus on the biography section because that's would make the most sense. So if I'm skimming through it, and that's what I'm doing, I'm just doing a little skimming to look for words like billionaire and fortune, and I see it right here. It says Elon Musk, a self-made billionaire, earned his fortune starting companies like PayPal and Tesla Motors. So what I want you to do is take your highlighter. I'm going to take my digital highlighter and highlight that first sentence in that section, and then with your pencil over in the white space next to it, I want you to put a number 1 because that is the first piece of text evidence on the directions. That's how it works. Number 2, find the sentence that gives the name of the Russian space program. Now, if you go back, I remember something in the introduction about how the United States had to retire the space shuttle, and there hadn't been launches in our country, so we had to work with Russia, and I see it right here towards the end. I see Russian space program, Roscosmos for space exploration. So since then, the United States has relied on the Russian space program, Roscosmos, for space exploration. That's the name of the Russian space program. That's in the final sentence, so we're going to highlight that. And in a text box, we're going to label that number 2. That's the second piece of evidence. Explicit, it's listed right there in there. We can put our finger on Roscosmos. We can put our finger on PayPal and Tesla Motors. Those are explicit pieces of evidence. Number 3, it says find 2 sentences that reveal the purpose of the International Space Station. So the purpose of it, why does it exist? What's the reason for it? 2 sentences. So I see International Space Station up here, but it's not really explaining why there is an International Space Station. This is all about Elon Musk. So let me go to Mission Possible and see if there's anything in there about the International Space Station. I'm skimming. I don't see it listed there. I'm going to go on to page 2. I'm skimming. Oh, I see it here. It says, okay, in May 2012, SpaceX made history again. Carrying the test run a step further, the Falcon 9 rocket launched the Dragon with a load of cargo to meet the International Space Station, a mobile laboratory that orbits the Earth many times per day. Astronauts live and work there, carrying out scientific experiments inside and outside the large space laboratory. I think those are 2 good sentences that explain the purpose of the International Space Station. And it starts where it says, actually it's going to start all the way that first long sentence, because it talks about that it's a mobile laboratory, and then the second sentence talks about how scientific experiments are created inside and outside of that. So we're going to highlight that, those two long sentences, and I believe that's number 3. We'll put a 3 next to that. So those two sentences are good explicit evidence that explains why the purpose of the ISS, the International Space Station. And then the fourth one, find the sentence that explains how the Dragon connected to the ISS in 2012. So as I skim, I'm going to be looking for words like Dragon and then the date 2012 to help me zone in on this specific piece of evidence. I'm going to keep reading because they're talking about the ISS up here, and I do see Dragon. It says the Dragon capsule was first successful. The 1,200 pounds of cargo delivered mostly with food and clothing. The Dragon was tested while in orbit to ensure it could meet the ISS without endangering the astronauts. When it felt confident they could move closer, astronauts grabbed the capsule with a giant robotic arm to connect it to the Harmony portion of the space station. Let me go back and check. It says how it connected to the ISS. That's exactly it. That robotic arm is how it connected. So when SpaceX felt confident is where it starts. That's where the sentence begins, all the way to the robotic arm to connect it to the Harmony portion of the space station. So that's our evidence, and that is going to be number 4. Okay? So those are all the explicit pieces of evidence. Now we're going to go to the second part that it says for questions 5 through 8, you'll be citing one piece or multiple pieces of textual evidence based on inferences drawn from the text. So it's not going to be as clear. We're going to have to look for clues. That's what inferences are. We're going to have to look at clues to help us draw conclusions based on the questions. So let's look at the first one. It says, find one piece of evidence from the article that helps the reader understand that the connecting of the Dragon to the ISS in March of 2019 was an intense moment. So when the Dragon connected to the ISS, it was an intense moment. Well, we were just reading about that, and first successful. The Dragon was tested to ensure it could meet without endangering the astronauts. It looks like we got us a dragon by the tail. I don't know if that shows how intense it was. Let's go back up to the introduction. I do remember something mentioned about the Dragon up here. It says, soft capture confirmed, reported Mission Control to the team intently watching. Okay, if they're intently watching, it sounds like it must be intense, because that's what intently means. Let's keep reading a little bit. Intently watching from the SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. The room erupted in applause. All right, so it sounds like there was a lot of tension, intently. And then when if a room erupts into applause, it sounds like that was a relief of tension. So there's our text evidence that helps us make an inference that that was an intense moment when that robotic arm came out to grab the Dragon. So that's number 5. Okay, number 6, find one piece of evidence from the article that tells you Elon Musk has very ambitious or very determined dreams for SpaceX. Okay, so to be ambitious means to go beyond what is a normal expectation, to have very high expectations of something. So I'm going to look in the last section because it's about the future and kind of where he's headed, and that might reveal that might reveal what we're looking for, how determined he is, how ambitious his dreams are for SpaceX. And I seem to remember they want to put people on these flights to go to Mars someday. And if I'm reading here, inside the Dragon, there's a dummy astronaut. The successful connection without having to use the robotic arm was another great accomplishment. And then it says, Musk has his eyes on groundbreaking space travel, such as booking flights to send people to Mars. Groundbreaking is a good clue. It's a good inference you can make. And ambitious, they kind of go together. Something that's groundbreaking is ambitious. So let's highlight that last sentence in the whole article. Whoops, we don't want to do that. How do I undo? Okay, give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. I think, oh, I'll do that. So I want to highlight just the last sentence. I don't know why it's making me do that. You got to be real careful when you use Cami. And then I'm going to highlight that, and then I'm going to take a text box, and I believe that's number 6. That shows his ambitious dreams, so that people like you and me can book a flight, like an airplane flight, but in a rocket, and go to Mars someday. That's what ambition sounds like. That's a good inference you can draw from that. Number 7, find one piece of evidence from the article that suggests that Elon Musk will probably invent more space technology in his lifetime. So he's not done. So when I remember right before, when I was just skimming this, it talked about how inside the Dragon, a dummy astronaut was wired to send information back to SpaceX Mission Control about conditions inside the capsule to prove that a human could safely travel inside. So I think the fact that he is testing with a dummy and not a human means that at some point he wants to put humans inside this. So he's testing out and he's making it better. He's perfecting it. That's what inventors do. And this is an inference that you can make that he's probably going to continue inventing and perfecting these capsules so that live humans can be in them, eventually traveling to Mars. So that's a good inference that you can make there. I'm going to put a text box next to this and label that number 7. Okay. And then we have one more piece of evidence, number 8. Now this one says find 4 pieces of text evidence from the article that support this statement. Elon Musk may be serious about business, but he has a fun sense of humor as well. So we're looking for, when he's just being a little silly, a little fun sense of humor, something that you wouldn't typically expect out of a scientist, like a rocket scientist to do. Remember, he's not a rocket scientist. He's a businessman. He's got his own personality. He injects it into this whole thing. So if we go back to, I believe, when he named his rocket, over here where it says Mission Possible. Remember Puff the Magic Dragon? That is actually a children's song he probably heard when he was growing up, and he named his rocket the Dragon because in that song, the dragon's kind of like a dream. It doesn't really exist, and people didn't think that his rocket could really exist. It was more like a dream, but he showed them. So the capsule Dragon was named after Puff the Magic Dragon, since many didn't believe Musk could achieve this goal. We're going to highlight that, and that's going to be the first piece of evidence that shows his sense of humor. That's number 8. So we need 3 more pieces of evidence that shows his sense of humor. And I'm looking right beneath it when the secret payload that he put on the Dragon was a giant wheel of cheese. And he said it was the world's first space cheese. So that's a good example, inference that you can make about his sense of humor. So Puff the Magic Dragon, space cheese, definitely. We need 2 more examples. Do you remember when he put this little toy in the capsule to indicate when it was 0 gravity? He could have just put like some sort of a some sort of an indicator there, something more mechanical, but he decided to just put that little toy in the seat. That kind of shows his sense of humor. And the tweet that he wrote, super high tech zeroing indicator added just before launch. The fact that he tweeted about that would be a good example of his sense of humor. Now, I can't highlight that because it's in an image, but I want you to take your highlighter and highlight the tweet, and with your pencil put a number 8 next to his tweet, because that does show his sense of humor. And then we need one more. Well, how about the fact that he put his car into space, and he put that little dummy, the little mannequin on there dressed up like a spaceman. I see it right here in at the bottom underneath in between these two images. It says the new Falcon Heavy was tested in true Elon Musk fashion. This test flight was unlike other test flights. Its cargo, Musk's personal 2008 Tesla Roadster carrying a mannequin named Starman. We're going to go ahead and highlight that because that shows his sense of humor as well. That's a good inference we can make. That's our 4th example of text evidence showing his sense of humor. So go back over, make sure you've got all of your text evidence labeled. You should have 4 number 8s and then 1 of each other of the other numbers. Make sure your name is on your article. And when you are done, I want you to walk it to me so I can check you off my list, and then you can move on to the next assignment for today.